Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Her Voice on Ahlulbayt TV, the show where we were discussing female-related topics, but from a female perspective. I'm Fatemeh Ghashgaee, and today's a very interesting topic. We'll be discussing charity from a female perspective, and really how should females be contributing to charities, and really some excellent advice on how to move forward, and really if you want to participate, what should one do? We have two guests in the show today who are actively involved in charities and really give up their time to support the wonderful causes that they're involved in. Dr. Amina Yasin and Sister Nada Ali. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for being on the show.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having us.
So I know you're both very much involved in particular charities, so it would be great to just get an understanding of which charity you work for and telling us a little bit more about the charity.
Okay, shall I start?
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. So I volunteer for an organisation called Al-Ain Social Care Foundation, and this is Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani's official orphans organisation. So it was established in Iraq in 2006, and first of all it was established to just document the cases of orphans that were being produced in Iraq as a result of all the terror attacks there. And eventually the organisation moved on to sponsor these orphans and to ensure that they were looked after from all different perspectives. So it takes a really holistic approach to their care. It makes sure that they've got enough financial support, educational support, health care, but also psychological support. And it makes sure that all the orphans and all the children are allowed to live a normal childhood just like anyone else. And Al-Ain was registered as a charity here in the UK in 2013, and alhamdulillah it's been going from strength to strength since.
MashaAllah. And do they look for particular professionals, or what's the audience who volunteer?
Sure. So our volunteers come from a really wide range of professions, different ages, different genders, and different backgrounds. We really do look for a wide range of volunteers. We look for skills rather than backgrounds. So, for example, people who have particular skills in social media or website design, or people who are very good at PR and publicity. So we've got a wide range of skills on our volunteer committee.
MashaAllah, that sounds great. And Sister Nada, tell us a bit about your charity.
Assalamu alaikum, thanks for having me on the show. So I worked for Zenabia Alliance for Refugees, and this is an organisation, I suppose a consortium of 5 different organisations across Europe. So I think the likes of the World Federation, the Islamic Imam Hussein Foundation, the Majlis Ulama Europe are, I think, 3 of the organisations that came together to create ZAR. And essentially ZAR was a direct response to the almost 1 million refugees, the massive exodus of refugees coming into Europe last year. And so I volunteered with them over the Christmas period for 2 weeks in December and January. And I guess the role of Zenabia is very much, like I said, a direct response to the refugee crisis. So their main operations was in the Greek island of Lesbos, where we were in, I think, one of the biggest refugee camps called Moria. And essentially, our role was there to show compassion, to connect with people, identify vulnerable people, and kind of be there, I guess, a pillar of support as they come into a complete foreign land. A lot of them are completely traumatized. They've suffered a lot, both physically and emotionally and mentally, making that that terrible crossing over the waters in Turkey. So so I suppose our role, a lot of people ask us, so what does Zenabia actually do? And I guess the simplest way of saying it is that, we help people in the sense that, for example, we would identify a vulnerable person or children that were disconnected from their parents, for example, and liaise with UNHCR, MSF, the other big NGOs that were working there, and really kind of be the representatives of the refugees. So, we had a wide variety of volunteers that would come with us, from anywhere from doctors to lawyers to engineers. So, it was essentially whoever within the community, and there was a massive focus on, the Shia community, being present there. to kind of show that, you know, we really care, and, you know, this is where we need to be. So our mission was basically just to go and, like, you know, help out refugees, ensure that, you know, they're treated right, if there's any issues, to, you know, in the camps, to kind of identify those and help them progress on to their final destinations.
So how did you get involved? I mean, it sounds really interesting, but how did you get involved in your charity?
It was a complete fluke, to be honest. So
sorry, you had gone December.
December.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
So it was literally 3 days before I broke up for holidays from work. It was quite a stressful time with client deadlines and everything. And I received an email going, you know, we need volunteers to go to Greece in 4 days' time. And I just remember just calling them up there and then, going, I want to join. It was a Monday. And it was, and that was it. And the funny story behind it is that just before I arrived in Athens airport, I had a blister on my feet, basically. And when I went in to do my wudu, and we arrived at like 6 in the morning at Athens airport. So I was doing like my masao on my feet. And I asked everyone if anyone had a plaster, and no one had a plaster. So I was like, okay, fine. And I was walking and I was limping in those shoes at the airport, and I glanced down on the floor and there's 2 plasters in a packet just there. And, you know, it was, and I mean, I'm a big believer in science, and it was almost kind of like, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, you need to be here. Like, this is where we need you to be. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. And I think it's just saying how kind of fulfilled you both seem by contributing, being a part of, you know, what is the cause that you're supporting. And I think a lot of people would really kind of probably look at our females within our community and think, well, is this a role for a female? Should you be doing this? You probably have children, you have your work, you have parents, whatever. But I find it really inspiring just to see that how we've organised our lives in such a way that we can give a little bit further. That's really amazing and really inspirational. So what, in your opinion, is the role of females in supporting charities?
I think that in Islam there's such an emphasis on charity work, and supporting charities is, you know, it's a role for all of us, be it male, female, young or old. But I think that women have an especially important role to play. In many families, women are the primary caregivers of children, and the mother is often the one that passes on values to the children and teaches the children. It's so important to instill that atmosphere of charity and of giving in your children and in your households. And I think women are uniquely placed to do that, as well as men, of course. But I think it's a beautiful role for a mother and of a female as well.
Fantastic. And you wouldn't necessarily always associate a Muslim female perhaps in a charity role, but I think it's surprisingly
visible, right? Yeah, I think a recent survey showed that Muslims were the most charitable community in the UK, and so I think that we do all feel that responsibility, and I think that it's becoming more and more commonplace to see strong Muslim females taking up roles in charity and doing things, be it abroad or in the UK.
And I think especially, so speaking from my experience of, you know, going to Greece and helping out with the refugees, I mean, you know, most of them, I think 54% are women and children.
Wow,
so
I didn't know that.
in order for them, as they come onto, you know, the Greek shores, they're completely traumatized, and for them to see a Muslim woman, obviously indicative by, you know, the fact that we're wearing a hijab. We were with Zainabi anyways, and you know, it's a sign of comfort more than anything else, that, you know, like there are people that you can relate to, and, you know, you don't feel as isolated in a completely foreign land. So I think that, you know, now more than ever, especially with the refugee crisis, and, like, you know, even Al-Ain Foundation, I would say that it's quite important that, you know, women are seen quite visibly as, you know, representatives of our community.
Fantastic. So I'm going to kind of take to make me think about something else. Some people not everyone is fortunate enough to be able to go out there and help physically, but there's kind of the other part of supporting charities and those in need, kind of maybe behind the scenes. What about that aspect? Do you find female are taking a more prominent role in physically giving, donating, helping? Because I think definitely it's, being at the forefront is one aspect, but females really kind of being a voice in their household and saying, we need to support these charities, we need to do this. Or do you find that's changing, or how important is that?
I think that women have a role at every level within charity. So you have sisters who are in the forefront, you have those who are making financial contributions from home, you have those that are organising and volunteering for charities in their own time, and you have those that may be unable to do those and may be able to pray for the charities, or with their du'ats, or with their support, they're supporting the charities themselves. So there's a role for you, no matter how much time you have, no matter how your finances are, you'll always find a way to support.
MashaAllah. What about Islamically? I think just be good to think about, what are the requirements for us to support charities according to the Ahlulbayt or the Quran? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, charity is one of the pillars of Islam, so I would say, it's incredibly important that we contribute to, our society, and not necessarily the Shia society or the Muslim community, but, our kind of brothers and sisters, like, globally, regardless of, whichever religion and culture they belong to. So I think we've been placed here, as much as, I guess, representatives of, of God's word, to help people as much as we can.
I think what the interesting thing about what you're saying is it's not exclusive for men, because I think we sometimes think, or I think maybe on the exterior people think that Muslim men are at the forefront doing this, but it's applicable to both men and male and female. So we should be stepping up as well. So that shouldn't, make us want to step back and say, well, the man is looking after it.
I mean, even in Al-Ain, even its headquarters in Iraq, and Iraq, of course, not being the same as the UK in terms of female empowerment, in Al-Ain in Iraq, the headquarters are staffed mostly by women. And many of those women are actually the widows who have lost their husbands and who are the mothers of these orphans. And they're given, so that very much the attitude of Al-Ain is not handouts and giving support. It's very much empowerment, teaching, training, and ensuring that these people get back on their own feet and stop that vicious cycle of poverty and of helplessness. And so, even in Iraq, most of the staff of Al-Ain are women, and the jobs they sometimes have to do are very, very difficult. So when Al-Ain sponsors an orphan, it follows up with them regularly every few months, and this follow-up involves a home visit. And many of the orphans live in really distant villages and towns in Iraq, sometimes with no transport links. And you'll have the special Ain staff called the Mutabi'at, and their job is to go and visit these orphans every few months. They sometimes have to get there, on really dangerous roads. They sometimes have to go on the back of horses or donkeys to arrive to the houses of these orphans. And it's a really, really tough job they do. And they have the strength to do that. And I think never underestimate the strength of a woman.
On that note, we have an interview with a sister who's actually actively involved in charity and supporting a cause. So we're off on a short interview with Sister Nargis.
We had I was there obviously last week, and I'm back and forth doing my job here and doing the charity work there. But we in one day, 35,000 people crossed the border, a closed border. They're escaping shooting from one army, another army saying, go back, we don't want you. So they have what they call the jandarma, kind of the highway police. So they're crossing a border with jandarma from two different countries on both sides, one shooting at them, the other one trying to block their way. And even if they come with luggage, it's all lost through the journey. So that flow of people has, in fact, I can tell you honestly that in the last month since the Russian bombings, it's increased massively, particularly people from the Halab region. Kayseri is very much a Turkish city, known by Turks, and nobody outside of Kayseri knows anything about it, has never heard of it. So reaching there was a tiny expat community which I hadn't connected with at that point, and I met a couple of Iraqi women completely by chance, They were looking for work, and my husband said, my wife speaks Arabic, she's Iraqi, go and talk to her. And it started off with just a friendship of a group of women who were strangers in that city, and very quickly realised, well, one of them, her husband was an amputee because of a bombing that had happened in Iraq. So anyway, they introduced me to some Christian Iraqis, some Syrian neighbours, and it very quickly became apparent that a lot of these people didn't have food in their houses. So I could invite them to my house and say, come and have chai or come and have dinner. But then when I went to their houses, it was very quickly apparent that they were below poverty. So we started with just doing food shopping, grocery shopping for 5 families. So we have over 50 families we've regularly helped now. Myself and a Turkish lady, Nilgun, from Canada. So we work together, and we've started, I'm sure we'll talk about, multiple projects. So can people help? Absolutely. And as Muslims, we have to help. Regardless of political opinions or any kind of sectarian issues, it's our absolute Muslim responsibility to help.
To point that out, because some people would say, oh, but they're part of Daesh or they're part of Assad's group, and people have conflict. This is humanity.
I don't think there's anyone that will say, we have a lot of yatims. The Syrian school in the area we operate in has 63 children who've lost mothers, fathers, or both parents. I have one family of 9 yatims. This is just an example. I have, in fact, multiple families. I have another family, 14 individuals, 2 widows in that house, between them about 10 yatims. So we have multiple families of yatims, and I don't think there's any Imam, Sayyid, Sheikh, Ayatollah, anyone who would say, don't help that yatim, his political opinion is X. It doesn't work like that. How can I as an individual do fundraising in the UK and run something in Turkey and market the problem? I want to say this because I think it's really important. We had a fundraiser last weekend. Most of the people who came were not Muslim. Most of the people who were involved were not Muslim. My immediate family, of course, were there and they supported me. However, we have a problem in our communities, the attitude of it's not my problem. Now, as many practicing Muslims, if you were out of your house and it was time to pray, you would look for the Qibla. If you want to go to Hajj, you save money to go to Hajj, right? Do we look for things to do? We actively have to look to be able to help. It's shameful that in this day and age with so many people in need that we're waiting to see a sad picture on Facebook that asks us for help before we respond and help. It shouldn't be like that. As Muslims, we should proactively be looking for people to help, whether it's a food bank in a church here, or if it's a charity elsewhere, poor people, homeless. We shouldn't be looking at these situations and saying, well, I don't work in the charity sector, it's not my job. I'm a business trainer, I'm not from the charity sector, but I'm Muslim. Therefore, I must have a connection to the charity sector. It's not a fundraising campaign. No. This is a responsibility of every Muslim. No. So it doesn't have to be did you give X amount of money? No. It doesn't have to be, did you, I've already given to charity this month. Yeah. Did you take a spare plate of food to a neighbour? All of these things, we should be looking for these opportunities. And actually, as women, this is another point, when you're dealing with widows, and we've now started to network with other charities in the area we work in, the widows will not open the door to a strange man who's a foreigner. Okay, so a Turkish man comes to a Iraqi lady's door or a Suri lady's door and knocks on the door talking a foreign language. He might have 10 bags of shopping, but she will not open the door. She doesn't know what his intention is. She doesn't know him from anybody. And even if he comes 100 times, she still won't open the door. So therefore, whether it's here or there, we as women must get involved in charity. Yeah. Why are we expecting social services to pick it up? Yeah. Why are we expecting, and if we were talking about yatims, why is it someone else's problem to pick up that child and raise them? What are we doing to help that child get through some sort of stress, get through, just to build a support network? Is anyone proactively doing that? Shouldn't we all be doing that? For 2.5 solid years, it was very much, from my very inner circle, close friends, it was send some money over, do some shopping, take shopping. It didn't change anyone's situation. It was pay rent sometimes, or so-and-so's lost their job, let's pay their rent, or this one's husband's ill and he's not being paid, let's pay their bills. Coal is another one. But it reached a point probably last year in the summer, where I sat down with this group of women, which had grown massively, and said, next, it could be in the next few months, it could be in the next few years, but you won't be on the news anymore. Somewhere else there'll be a war. And just like Iraq was forgotten, and people don't think Iraqi refugees, you will be forgotten too. And people won't be so quick to part with their cash. It'll be another fashionable cause. Greece became a fashionable cause. Calais became a fashionable cause. They're already not a fashionable cause being inside a city in Turkey. No one can access them. So I made a decision that we'd research some kind of social enterprise. We looked at sewing, we looked at crochet and knitting, and I happened to have a few women who were brilliant at both. The sewing needed a physical space, so we couldn't start straight away. But crochet needle cost nothing, 20p. The wool cost next to nothing. We found wholesalers for the wool, and we said, let's get started. So again, we started with tiny number of women who said, oh, I know how to crochet, I can do this. I can go make designs, pick things. This is one of the sets we do, which is a baby sleeping bag.
That's adorable.
And we do sets with the hats and little booties and bottle holders as well to keep the bottles warm. It takes between 3 days and a week for them to make a set, but actually the difference is they are able to make 2 weeks worth of rent with a set like this.
Wow, and you sell these?
We're completely non-for-profit, and we don't have any administration charges. So we, as an organisation, as a charity, Oak Charity, we'll buy all the supplies for them, we'll sell it for them in the UK, and as long as the expenses of the wool are covered, it doesn't affect the charity, all the money goes back to them. So we've sold in Canada, we've sold in the UK, of course, and we've just opened an online shop, and we're expanding constantly. So one of the houses we went to, which was in quite a bad shape, the snow had got into the house. It had melted into the house, and the walls had a block of solid ice on the inside. And then you have they sleep on thin sponges. The sponges had rot on them. So some of the conditions are terrible. So if I can help them enough to be able to pay their own rent, they can move out of these places. We've started to move people anyway. We are involved in multiple streams of projects. Some of them are medical. Some of them are simply what we call emergency care. So rent, food, bills covered for the emergency cases. The social enterprise and the working bit is growing, and that's where we want to grow. Because it's a very demoralising thing to have to beg for food, to have to go from charity to charity, and some charities will give them a bag of food. How long does a bag of food last when you've got
for a big family,
3, 4, 5, even 2 people? And how much do nappies cost if nobody donates nappies?
And medical care, how is that funded?
All the money is from one pot. We're working on, I mentioned something to do with dentistry, but actually for me, it's a really important project. We have 4 children who we're trying to get cornea transplants for. If you've been a successful businessman, or you had a career and you had a job, and you had 2, 3, 4, 5 kids more, and you never had to ask anyone for help, and then suddenly one day you're in a city and your wife says, we don't have food, it's your job to bring the food home. And that pressure lasts for months and months and months, and they can't bring food home. They walk out. The stress gets too much, and we've had multiple families where husbands have walked out because they couldn't deal with the stress of just not being able to feed their wives and kids.
I think that was a really inspiring interview, and I think it speaks back to what you were just describing, how females need females to support them, to look after them. And I'm just trying to put myself in that position when you're expecting or something goes wrong, which kind of female sensitive kind of scenario, you want to be discussing it with a female, not with a male. As much as, I know we have male doctors, but that emotional support really does come from females, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
There were actually a number of times where, we had ladies who were expecting, coming to the camps, and, of course they wouldn't feel so comfortable, especially after everything they'd been through, to then kind of not have a female presence there. So when I went with Zainabia in our team, there was two other ladies who were volunteering with us, and one was fluent in Farsi, and the other one was a psychologist. So, you know, as a team, we worked very cohesively, you know, with women, and just kind of ensured that, you know, they had the support both from a medical, emotional perspective, and they knew that, you know, we were there to kind of step in if they require help. And actually, there's another incident that it reminds me of. In one of the boat landings when the refugees come from Turkey onto the shore of Lesbos, I remember receiving an old Afghanistani lady, and she was quite old and visibly shaken. And I remember she was wearing a headscarf, and I remember she kind of saw me and identified me as a Muslim. And you know, I went over to her and she hugged me and she clinged on so tight. I still remember just her shaking in my arms. So you know, had I not been there, or no female presence been there to comfort her, so I think it's crucial that you know, women are there in such situations at least.
There's definitely an evident need for us females to be kind of actively involved, and like Dr. Amina said, in any capacity, in any way. But how can we kind of take that thought and really instill this into our daily lives? And I think sometimes you see all the kind of advertising and you know, there's momentum and people donate, but how can you incorporate this into our daily lives? I find that seems to be maybe kind of you switch on and you switch off. Maha Ramadan, you kind of actively involved, and then it stops until another kind of crisis perhaps. But wouldn't it be great if we could maintain that in such a kind of way that we're always giving?
Yeah, I think one way to look at it is that charity can be at different levels. So part of that is taking 2 weeks out of your life and going and doing something that's incredible, and that's amazing. But of course, that's not something that can be done for most people. It can't be done on a very frequent basis. And there are smaller things that can be done every day. So be it giving even small amounts of, they say small amounts of charity every single day are bigger than a big amount at once. And you're providing that continuous protection for your family. And more importantly, you're just continuously thinking of others. And other ways to help charities would be to see if you had any spare time where you could volunteer, or getting your children involved, thinking about charity. So there are lots of food drives in the UK, for example, the Sufra food bank. And even when you're just doing your shopping in the supermarket, picking up a few extra items to take to a food bank, or encouraging your children to go through their clothes and their toys to choose things that they don't use anymore, to donate to other children. So I think it's just having that attitude, having a giving attitude, and just making sure that whatever you do, you're thinking of others. And
good point.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity to really do something big is incredible. And if you've not been blessed with that opportunity, to just find where you can do smaller things every day.
And also, I think that, you know, when you think about charity, it's not necessarily in, you know, very tangible terms. I mean, especially with social media, you know, the prevalence of social media, everything is so accessible. So it's not just a matter of, you know, either donating your time or donating your money, but you know, sometimes it's actively looking to being involved in something, showing that you care. And in our daily terms, I think it's very important that, you know, rather than kind of looking at charity as something that we do with, like, you know, oh, I've donated, tick box. I think it's something that has to become very inherent and has to turn into a lifestyle. So, you know, it's happening as you're walking or, you know, sitting.
Yeah.
So, for example, when you're on the tube and, you know, a pregnant lady comes on, or you know, someone who needs a seat, you don't think about it. A thought process doesn't take place. You automatically you just get up, you know, and that's charity, because at the end of the day, it's kindness. You know, smiling at someone is charity.
I think that is what makes the most impact. I'm not saying going out and, you know, helping what you guys do. Of course it does, but on a day-to-day basis, smiling, and kindness. I think that is just, especially now, it has such an impact. And just people are so unhappy, and you come across, you know, with the state of where we are. I think we're kind of quite deficient in that area.
Also, I think that as Muslim women, you know, we are such clear representatives of Islam. I mean, you know, someone looks at us from the street, I mean, it's obvious, you know, we're Muslim women. So I think it's so important in that case to, you know, show warmth and show compassion and show kindness to people, to let them know that there are no barriers between humanity. Like, we care. So yeah.
I think you touched on I think something I was thinking about, social media. It's instrumental in taking us to the next level sometimes from the charities, whether it's raising funds or kind of getting charity out there in the forefront. And how important, in your opinion, is social media? How can one get involved? Because there's so much out there.
Yeah.
So
I think social media is this fantastic tool, and it's really erupted in the last few years. But at the same time, it can be a double-edged sword. So on one hand, social media means that charities are able to publicise their work much more widely. It also means that people who do sponsorship events can gain, they can gain traction to their cause much more widely. For example, just recently there was a fundraising for the recent events in Karada. And in the matter of one night, they managed to raise over £10,000, mashallah. And I think something like that would never be possible without social media, because it's so fast and it's so connected the whole time. But I think, on the other hand, one thing we always need to be careful about is the intention when posting on social media. And so when we do acts of charity, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam has said that the best 3 ways to perfect an act of charity are to do it quickly, but to do it secretly, and also to do it without making too big a deal of it. And so it's important, I think, to ensure whenever we do post anything on social media, just to check our intention, and what is our intention when we're posting our charitable acts.
beautiful.
And also to just make sure that whenever we're helping someone, we're always aware that you are helping someone, but actually you are the one that's blessed, because Allah's given you this opportunity to help.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's like just being wanting to give.
Absolutely. So you're the one that's blessed to help. So making sure that any, for example, in Al-Ain, we always make sure any images that we put of the orphans on our Facebook or on our social media are dignified images. At the end of the day, they're children, and it's not nice to put them up and looking in a vulnerable state on the internet.
That does make me think.
And just make you think that whenever you're helping someone, you are the one that's lucky and you are the one that's blessed. And just to keep track of that.
That's a really nice thought. And it takes us to a great point to kind of take a break. And we'll be back shortly after this break, where we'll be discussing in more detail really kind of the significance of charity, and practically how does one choose the charity that they contribute to, because there's a lot out there, and really some of the struggles of the organisations that are behind these wonderful causes. So join us after this break. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome back to Her Voice on Ahlulbayt TV. We've been discussing today the topic of charity and really female involvement and participation in charities as a whole. We've got 2 wonderful guests on the show who've given up their own time, multitasking amongst other things, in supporting charities that are close to their heart, and really giving the charities their all by the sounds of it. I've got on the show Dr. Amina, Yasin, and Sister Nada Ali. Welcome back. I think it's amazing just going through your experiences and really how important charities are in your opinion. And it's not exclusive for men. I think that's something else that we sometimes think is, let charity be done by men. But what I'm learning is that it's probably more significant for females to take a more, a stronger role, because the victims of charity tend to be more female in the communities that you've discussed. So I think we were discussing really helping and giving, but there's a return. We get a benefit from charity. So I don't know I'd love to hear your opinions about how you've benefited from charity, where you've probably challenged yourself and really gone over and above, but you've gained a reward at the end of it.
Well, so I cycled across Algeria, Tunisia into Spain for charity for Doctors Without Borders.
Amazing. Wow.
And that was about 1,000 miles through mountain terrain in Algerian summer heat, I must add. And I think it tested me physically, it tested me emotionally, and I have to admit it tested my faith a bit as well, because just to get that strength to continue after 8 hours of cycling in blistering heat. But also, I think what I learned the most was that, you know, I thought that, you know, I'm doing this great thing, and you know, I'm raising money for a great charity. But in fact, it was the people that I met in Algeria, for example, who showed me the greatest of kindness and the greatest of charity. So when we arrived in Algeria, the month of Ramadan had started, and during Ramadan, of course, all the restaurants they closed down during the day, and when they would open for iftar, they would give food for free to everyone for the entire month. And even though we insisted, you know, let us pay for the food, you know, let us pay for money, they were like, no, like, you know, Allah,
this is my reward.
Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide. And
Mashallah.
I mean, it was not even aside from Ramadan, when we were cycling through Tunisia, we had people in, you know, mountain regions where there was no other civilization in sight. But, you know, there'd be people who would see us kind of struggling on our bikes and come out with water and food. And, you know, so I think that when we perform these kind of acts, or, you know, when we go on a big adventure, I think there's a bit of ego that comes into it as well. And I think that what you need to remember is that, you know, charity is all about grounding you, and is to remind you that, you know, the ni'mah of Allah, and that you're so incredibly privileged in your life to even be able to, you know, do these things.
Beautiful. So I think I've always wondered how people do these cyclings. I mean, is it continuous? Do you take a break? How does it work? Sorry, I'm a bit naive in this area. I've not done it, obviously.
Well, it was across 3 weeks. So we, I think we were averaging about 80 miles a day. And we would have like a day's break if we would get into a city or something. But usually we would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, prayers, get on the road.
Are the females who are involved as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, get on the road, and then before 11 o'clock, we try to get the bulk of the cycling out, because from 11 to 3, the sun is on you, and there's no shade, no nothing.
Wow.
So it was, a lot of it was just kind of willpower to get you through, to be honest.
That sounds fantastic. And then it brings me to my next point. I think something you and I were discussing earlier on about giving when you're struggling, giving when it's difficult. And then I'm sure that the villages that you stopped by in Algeria, it wasn't really financially viable for them to give out food every day for a whole month. I mean, how does one do that? I mean, some people say, well, I'm struggling, I'm in a bad place, so maybe charity later.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, this is such an important topic. I mean, especially with the current economic climate, many people don't have that much disposable income. And to think, and there are so many charities that, you know, are asking for attention and are asking for help. And I think the first thing to say is that, you know, Allah never burdens a soul with more than it can carry, and Allah would never expect you to give any more than what you can, be it through your physical activity or through your financial means. And, you know, Allah will always judge you based on what you have. And so a few pounds given with a really good intention may be worth more in the eyes of Allah than thousands of pounds which have been given for a bad intention. And I think also part of the beauty of charity, which you were alluding to earlier, is the benefits that you yourself receive. So in our hadith, it's very much narrated that when you give in charity, Allah rewards you and increases your own sustenance. And when you give in charity, it also provides protection, and they say صدقة تدفع البلاء. So charity, you know, it removes calamities, it protects you, it protects your families, it takes away hardship from you. And so no matter how small you can give, you know, the Prophet ﷺ has even said, if you can just give one date in charity, it's, you know, it's better than nothing. And so no matter who we are, we'll always have something we can give, even if it's not financially, if it's our time, if we don't have any time, even if it's a smile, as you said, whatever you can give is undoubtedly going to be rewarded, inshallah.
And I think it's those times when you're struggling is when you're mostly tested most.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I think it's interesting that you say that. One of my favourite ayahs of the Quran referencing charity is when we're really giving at what Allah's given us. It wasn't ours to begin with. So what we've been requested to do is share the bounties that we've been given and share it with the others.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're a little bit selfish and we've been given so much and it's like keeping all the gifts to yourself. So I think it's kind of mentally kind of challenging yourself to say this wasn't really yours to begin with.
The other day I was with my son who's 3 and I had given him some sweets and then I asked if I could have one and he didn't want to give me one. and I thought, but then I thought, subhanallah, that's exactly
how we are
with Allah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He has given us all our blessings. Nothing. We came to this earth with absolutely nothing. And now to give, be it 20% in khums or be it £1 of charity, suddenly seems too much sometimes.
Beautiful, but then we expect it. Oh, it's amazing. That's a really fantastic point probably to come back to. Now we're off for a short video clip Sister Esra Tamimi has prepared where a group of dentists had gone to Calais and refugee camps to really offer free dental care to the refugees and really experience. She's sharing her experience and what she saw in Calais.
Suitcases, bags, boxes, bags, lots of clothes like women's tops, jumpers, things like that. So we're going to just put that into the car.
We've been immigrated from Iraq by Saddam regime to Iran. It was in 1980. And I can't remember that it was very hard for us as a child. We were just like basically staying in a tent, very cold, no blankets, and I remember that we used to wash dishes and our hands were bleeding.
So we're going to be approaching. There's the camp there. I think we're going to go around to find the dental unit. Oh my god, it's huge. It's actually huge. Poor things. Look, they're sleeping everywhere. Every corner.
We're just approaching the tents of refugees.
So Ra'id, who's set up the dental unit, has brought everything. I think there's pretty much everything we need here. And you've got all the instruments, cotton, GIC, calzonol, sutures, and then all the instruments set up all in the right places, all been, oh, thank you. Oh, that's for you, the scrubs. So, yeah, and then they've got 2 chairs here. We just saw the first patient, huge cavity, but he doesn't want the tooth taken out. He wants root canal. I said, you're not going to get root canal here. So we've given him antibiotics, painkillers. Other than extraction and putting temporaries, I don't think there's much else we can do.
Okay?
Yes, perfect. It's fine. I don't need it now.
No more? Okay, cool.
So does it take...
Our van's opened up and they're queuing for food. But some people get aggressive. It's so windy and cold. Blood everywhere, water everywhere, rubbish everywhere. Like they're building these kind of makeshift kind of tents. I need to go to the UK. I feel so bad for them.
But at the same time, I was just like tearing apart. It was just like...
But you were amazing because Nibras translated for us in Arabic and English and Farsi. So important, so important.
Oh my God.
They've set up a restaurant. Who are these people setting all these restaurants and shops up?
These are people that live in France. And
who are making the business. Okay.
They come into Calais to make a business. When we arrived at the camp in the jungle, the first thing we did was we found a location where we can distribute the stuff. We bought lots of shoes, we brought lots of jackets, we brought lots of clothes and food as well for the refugees. And what we did was we went to a camp. We wanted to find somewhere where we can help distribute the stuff. And we got to know a few people who are actually known as the Bidoon. These are Kuwaitis who don't have citizenship, and they've been treated like dirt in Kuwait. So they've left Kuwait in search for better opportunities, and they've come in the hope of entering Calais. They have their own tent, but they are very, very beautiful people, very, very good, sincere people. And they said that they know lots of people, lots of other refugees who are in need. So what we did was we offloaded all the donations from the van into their tent, and from their tent they distributed through the people that they know all the goods to them.
They went around to different camps to see who needed what, and they went to check the size of the shoes.
We had 7 boxes of shoes, and varying sizes. Each box had a particular size. So what these Bidoon were doing, the people that they know are in need, they go to them, they have a piece of paper, and they ask who needs shoes and what size are you. They record it, then they go back to their tent and get the shoes for those particular individuals, and then get it to them. So they distributed all the shoes, they distributed all the blankets, they distributed all the food, and they've got remaining clothes in their tent, which they are slowly in the process of giving away.
Handing out to the right people.
But these are beautiful people, really beautiful people.
Yeah, I know, you were sitting with them for ages.
They're Sunni and they're Shia, but they pray side by side, they sleep side by side. There isn't just the only thing that unites them, the only thing that's common about them is their akhlaq,
their manners,
their manners, their etiquette, their religion, their sense of compassion. Absolutely beautiful. And they did not give just to the Shia. They gave to Iraqi, Shia, Sunni, non-Muslims, any non-Muslims that were there. They said, we know those who are in need, and we give only to those who are in need, and God is our witness.
So welcome back. I mean, that was a really moving video clip from some Esra, and I think sometimes we forget how limited resources are and what they have. I know you've seen it in first hand, but I think for us, we assume that, I don't know, it's hard to understand the conditions that they're living in, what they're eating, how they're surviving, because we don't see it. There's an automatic reminder all the time. But that really brings us to understand how important it is for us to help and support. Sister Amina, you've probably come across similar scenarios, but I mean, because in the West, I guess we have a kind of an understanding of what to expect. But in Iraq, it must be equally as challenging, the conditions that the people are living in, that really, the orphans that need this support.
Yeah, it's always so difficult to see people living in difficult circumstances, and with Calais, with the video we just watched, just to think that it's a couple of hours away from our homes, just makes it even more horrific. Our team from Al Ain did go to Iraq recently, and the stories that they've come back with were, many of them were very upsetting, just to know of people living in such poor conditions, and children not having running water or electricity in their homes, and having to really make do with such difficult circumstances. And I think it just makes you, it makes you hold your children a little closer and just feel so grateful for the bounties that Allah has blessed you with. And it makes you aware that all your blessings are also responsibilities, and that the more that you've been given, the more responsibility you have to give in return.
Similar to Sister Amina, when I was in Moria, in Lesvos, the kind of things that we would see and witness, I think it's the biggest thing is that human dignity. These are people who are unfortunately have been stripped of their dignity. We have mothers begging for milk for their children, and we had, for example, at one point in the busiest season, we had thousands of people turning up on the shores of Greece, and from a resource perspective, from a capacity perspective, we would have a very limited place for families to stay overnight, and with wind chill in December, the temperatures would drop down to -9 degrees, and with nursing women, and with babies and pregnant ladies, it was it's quite difficult to kind of go and witness these things, and then and not be able to provide immediate comfort. How do we immediately help you out of that situation? And sometimes you can't. Sometimes the best that you can do is basically to just, go and let them know and show kindness and to hold their hand and even just hug someone, who's been through so much and say, well, I'm here. And one of the things that we always used to say to the refugees there is like, we're your servants. Like, if we're here to help you. And if just if there's any way that we can help you, we will. And the charity and the kindness is returned from them as well. So my Arabic skills aren't very great, even though I was translating at Moria camp. And I remember at one point I was surrounded by refugees, and they were kind of all asking me questions, all wanting to get their point across, and I got really flustered because I didn't know who to answer, and I got really overwhelmed, and I started stuttering, so I couldn't actually form a sentence in Arabic to let them know, please, one at a time. And then a really old man, he stepped into the circle, quietened everyone, and said, "Sister, you speak in whichever dialect you can, and it's our job. We will understand you." And I was just, I had tears in my eyes, and I was like, I'm here in my head to help you, but you're helping me so much with my humanity that I can't thank you enough. So I think dignity, dignity is definitely one thing we should always remember.
I think also now, come to think of it now, taking a step back, and I have to say, I think I was aware of the charity that you're working with, the charity that you're working with, new to me. Well, there's so many similar charities that you come across, or you come across in social media, you see on billboards. It's difficult as someone who wants to participate, if someone has the genuine want to support, who you choose from and how do you contribute, in what quantity, capacity. I'd love to hear from you and some advice and guidance for our viewers to see if you want to give. Where do you get your information from? And really making sure you contribute in the most effective manner.
I think it is a difficult one. As you said, alhamdulillah, that there are so many charities and alhamdulillah that there are so many people wanting to do good, and that is a blessing for our community. I would say that it really comes down to personal choice, and that it comes down to what you feel your abilities are, what you feel your interests are, and where you think you could serve best. So there's a huge spectrum of charities, be it for refugees, be it for orphans, be it a food bank, be it even an animal shelter. That it depends on what you're interested in. Me personally, when I was choosing a charity to get involved in, the things that went through my head was that, first of all, I was really interested in working with children. So in my day job, I'm a paediatrician, and I really believe in advocating for children and in giving children the best life chance. So I was interested in working with children. But I wanted an organisation that was very transparent. You want to go where you want to know where your money goes. You want to know what your money does, and you want to ensure that people are going to be held accountable for every pound that you donate. And Al Ain has transparency that is over and beyond my expectations. So all money that's donated is provided with a receipt. A story, if I can share. So Al Ain has sadaqa boxes that are quite famous in the UK and in Iraq. And in Iraq, when they are opened, the sadaq boxes, when they are opened, they're opened by a committee of 6 people under direct CCTV surveillance.
Right.
So that all the money that's counted is exactly recorded, and those CDs are saved for a long time afterwards, just to ensure that every single person is being held to account for the money that's donated. So especially in a climate like Iraq, I think that was important to me. And it was also important to me that the charity I supported had feet on the ground and had people that were there and that could follow up with the work on a personal basis. And finally, the last thing that really attracted me to the charity, where there are lots of charities that give money and that give food, but to me the beauty of Al Ain was that it allows the children to be children. So one of the biggest one of the campaigns they have, and it's the one that I'm most involved in, is the Toys campaign. So children from all over the UK and through Europe and America as well donate their toys that are new or very good condition used toys, and they can bring them to our office or arrange for collection. And these toys are sorted and sent to Iraq, and every orphan once a month has the chance to go to their own offices and to choose any toy they want.
Oh, wow.
So it's set up like a toy shop, but it's
wonderful.
completely free, and they walk in and they can just choose any toy they want. And our volunteers who have been there say that most of the orphans, when they walk in, they don't want to choose anything. They just stand there because they've never had that opportunity to to choose before. And to me, some people say they're toys, it's toys, it's not money, it's not food, but that's what children are about, and it's happiness, and it's providing that opportunity to just be normal. And that's
where are your offices if one would want to donate?
Our offices are on Edgware Road in Colindale, and if you go to www.alayn.co.uk, our full address is on there.
And it's a well worth cause. I mean, there are lots of toys hanging about, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And yourself, Sister Nada, I think that was really inspirational. Oh, it's lovely to hear.
It actually reminded me of the Mercy family compound in the refugee camp in Lesvos, and we would only, well, I say we, but Mercy, the foundation would only allow families in after dark while they clean during the day. So you would have, it was on a hill, so you would have families with the children just camped outside waiting to be let inside this compound. And we used to have children who would just be running around, and it's so incredible to see that, despite the fact that, even just the night before they must have come through or experienced such a harrowing journey, they're just out and about and playing. And just being children, and then kind of constantly coming up to you and saying, "Do you have any more toys for us to play with?"
No.
And I think I think shows you that whatever you're doing, it's for the future. It's for the future generation, for children, and I think it really helps. Just kind of keep you focused as to why you're here. I mean, of course, one part of it is helping your own nafs, I guess, with charity and pleasing Allah, but also you're there to serve other people.
And in your opinion, do you think it's exclusively for a certain community, or would you support everyone? Or the charities that you support, anyone who would be in need. It's not as though it would target a particular audience.
Absolutely. I mean, we in Moria, for example, there was we had Yazidis, with Iraqis, with Afghanistanis, we had Syrians, we have North Africans, we had Pakistanis, we even had Sri Lankans. There was just a wide array of people from all over, and our service or what we can offer wasn't limited to any one demographic or any one group of people.
Beautiful. I think we're almost at the end of the show, and it's just been really kind of inspiring and also eye-opening just to see the experiences you've individually had, what you've done, and really how much there is left to do. Yeah. Really kind of, it's inspiring to say, there are all these wonderful charities, there's so many opportunities for us to get involved in any capacity, and really kind of as females, we really need to be out there and add a bit more. So I don't know if you want to add to that or anything, kind of some takeaway messages, or if there were something you'd like to share with the audience, what would it be?
Go on.
My message would be, do whatever you can, no matter how small. No action ever goes missed. Allah always sees everything. And when you are doing acts of charity, it's always so beautiful if you have children to take them along with you. And so when we do the toy sorting in the office, our children are there.
Well, that's a really
and we
good
always
point,
tell them,
children.
when we're sorting which toys to choose and which toys not to choose, I always tell them, whatever toy you would like, those are the toys that we send. And if a toy's broken or dirty and you wouldn't like it, then that's the toy that we wouldn't send.
I see what you're saying. So you give the best of what you have.
Yeah, you give the best of what you have. These children just like you, and just exactly as you said, it's all about the future, the future of the people you're helping, but also the future of your own children, and making sure that they're going to grow up to be givers and to be compassionate and to be charitable as well.
Charity begins at home.
Absolutely. We didn't discuss the children being involved aspect, but I think you've touched upon it wonderfully.
My message, I suppose, would be that just adding on to what Sister Amina said, that of course, no matter how small the amount or the act, there's no such thing as a small amount or a small act. But one thing I would be slightly wary of, particularly when it comes to social media, is that I think it sometimes makes us a bit complacent and a bit apathetic, because we think, oh, we've clicked like on a charity's page, or like, we've shared something and that's our act of charity done. In fact, I think there was an ad that was run by UNICEF, and they said something like us on Facebook and we will vaccinate 0 children against polio. So just to kind of, drive home the message that it's great that you're liking us on Facebook, but that doesn't actually help us in any tangible way where, we can kind of help or continue doing the work that we're doing. So I think just be active, be proactive in everything that you do, no matter how big or small
That's a great point. Yeah, and I think it does. Social media is fantastic, but really going out there and doing a little bit more and then just liking. Well, it's been wonderful having you both on. Thank you so much. Wishing you all the best in all that you do, and I know you've probably sparked lots of interest in the audience watching, because I know generally I've taken a lot from what you've shared and different ways that we can all individually help support the society that we live in and really take responsibility for it. Thank you so much. I'm wishing you all the best in all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the audience who've been watching, and really kind of the inspirational words from our guests today. Wishing you all a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.